Hello everyone, my name is Aditi Kothari and I'm from DSP BlackRock, and today I'm very happy to have with me Rick Kahler here. Rick is a very well-known wealth manager in the United States and he's written several books. He's also got 30 years of experience behind him and manages assets more than $210 million. And today I want to talk to him about women and investing. As you know, DSP BlackRock has an initiative called Winvestor, the Wise Woman Investor. And in that, we encourage women to make their own investment decisions so they can be truly financially independent. I'm happy to be talking to Rick as part of this program and asking him questions on women and investing and his tips for women advisors, for IFAs, on how to deal with women, how to encourage more women, and also to give some tips to women investors on why they should start making their own investment decisions. So with that, I'm going to start with Rick. So Rick, I just wanted to know, is there any fundamental difference in the way a woman approaches her financial future and a man approaches it?
Of course, there's some fundamental differences between men and women. Some of the research that we know suggests that men tend to be more thinking, a little more logical. Women tend to be a little bit more feeling oriented. But outside of that, there's not a lot of difference between the success of women investing, their capacity to understand money, or a man's. Really, there's some studies that would suggest that women do better at investing than men.
So you're saying we don't need to have any kind of separate training program for women because women at the end of the day are the same as men and they can understand and grasp the principles the same. I think in India, I don't know if it's the same in the States, we did a study and we found out only 23% of working women make their own investment decisions. So they leave it up to their fathers or their brothers or their husbands or the man in the family. Is that something you found in the States as well?
We find something similar. I mean, it's not so much to leaving it up to a man, but people tend to leave it up to someone else. We have a study in the US that suggests that 80% of all workers depend on someone else to make their decisions. That includes men. So a lot of men, they can take the persona or the position that they're supposed to know, and they can play that role, but men don't know any more about investing than women. And quite frankly, there's women that know more about investing than men. I can think of a new client that I recently acquired, and the woman does all the investing. She's done a tremendous job. I mean, one of the best portfolios I've ever seen come to me, and her husband is very happy to let her do that. So I don't find any difference between the capacity of a woman to understand and invest and not. I used to sit on the South Dakota Investment Council. We ran $6 billion at the time, and the staff was heavily made up of women who were brilliant investors. So I just don't find any real difference. In fact, as I said, in many cases, women can sometimes do better than a male counterpart.
So maybe this is a different view, and maybe it's India-centric. So I think the lesson here is that we need to draw out more women and encourage them to make their own investment decisions because clearly they seem to be good investors.
Totally. A woman needs to have the same knowledge as a man, the same opportunity, but sometimes I think a woman can shrink back a little bit, thinking that this isn't my role.
Yes.
This isn't what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to let the male make the decision. And that can be very much a cultural thing. Sometimes we call that a money script, that my belief is, well, men should make the decision. All the while that she probably is capable of making better decisions than the man that she's deferring to.
And so what advice would you give advisors when only the male client comes in? would you advise them to bring in their wives or their daughters, or what would you say?
As an advisor, if they are married, I want them as a couple, especially if I'm doing financial planning. I cannot do financial planning for one person, whether it's the male or the female. It's a couple, it's important. So if a male comes to me, I will ask him to bring in his wife. If he wants me to do financial planning, I won't do financial planning unless he brings his wife in. Likewise, if the wife comes and the male doesn't want to come, we have another problem. So it really takes two. They're very important. And especially with male advisors, they need to be aware that the female is there. A lot of mistakes that a male advisor makes is talking to the male as if the female doesn't exist. Now that is not smart. It's just the same as a female advisor. Maybe she focuses with the female and forgets the male is there. Both people are important to that coupleship. They are 50-50, and they have both got to be respected. Sometimes I'll have a female that won't be speaking up so much. I will make sure that I turn to her and ask her questions and engage her, because she is 50% of that equation. Her voice is very important. Occasionally I will get the opposite of a male that isn't speaking up. It would be the same thing. So I think it's really important for the advisor to focus on both parties and make sure everybody has a voice in the process.
And what about, do you also agree that because the life expectancy of a woman even in the States is more than that of a male, it's very important for the woman to understand what's happening in the finances of her husband?
Totally important. I have read statistics in the U.S. that 77% of the wealth in the U.S. is controlled by women. And as you said, women tend to outlive their husbands. So it's very important. There will come a day and a time that they need to know this information. So part of what we try to do is to involve them in the decision making, in the education. Sometimes I say 50% of what I do is educating, and empower them, help them to understand, because they're not only capable, oftentimes they're making better decisions than their husband. Oftentimes they're understanding the concepts better than their husband.
And what about working women who have their own money? So do they come to you, is that, or do they also come with their husbands? Is it usually still a planned, you do a financial planning together? Because today a lot of women are working, they have their own money. And in India, the law now says that if you're someone in your family, your father or mother dies without a will, you are given equal amount as your other siblings and your mother or father, whoever's living. So earlier, the man in the family, the son, the eldest son would inherit more. Now it's equal. So more women in India are getting money in their hands, and it is their money. So I don't know if that's in the States where, since more women are working, it's their own money and then they come to you separately. And if they do, what do you advise them? And two, I'd like to know the anxieties of these women when they come to you. What are their typical questions? How do you address them?
We have women that will come to us with their money. Now, if we're not doing financial planning, we'll help them invest their money.
Okay.
Every couple is a little bit different. So we will have working women, we'll have working men. Sometimes the couples will hold their money separately. Sometimes they want to have the investment decisions separate over how their money is invested. Sometimes they'll agree that we want to invest it together.
Okay.
So I think it's very specific to that coupleship, how that is going to operate. But quite frankly, I think more of our couples have his, her, and our money.
Okay.
To where they both have independent checking accounts. They both have money that they can spend without the other's approval.
Yes.
And then they will have their joint money for the running of the household.
Right, right.
That seems to be a formula that is fairly popular.
Okay.
But we also see coupleships where everything is joint.
Yes.
And then we see coupleships where everything is separate.
Okay.
So there's not a one-size-fits-all with that. As far as the concerns that a woman has when they come to us, I don't know, quite frankly, that a woman's concerns are any different than a man. But I will tell you, there's one big difference between men and women that I see, and I'll probably get myself in trouble with my gender here. Women seem to be more teachable.
Okay.
And women have a little advantage over the males, that their brains are a little more connected. They get things a little quicker. I like to say that us males have a gravel road connecting both halves. Women have superhighways. And I find that women are more open to learning and grasping concepts, where sometimes the male feels that they've got to know this, they need to enjoy it, and they grab onto concepts that are not necessarily so true, and they have a hard time ego-wise letting those go. Now that's, I'm being very general because it can go both ways, but generally speaking, I enjoy working with my, my female clients in that they don't have a lot of preconceived ideas of how things are going to go, and they can learn a little quicker.
And do you notice that they have different goals, men and women?
I can't say that...
financial goals, I mean.
The financial goals are not necessarily so different. I don't find a big difference with their financial goals.
So if I'm an IFA and I have a female client coming to me, I don't have that many female clients because, you know, in India there aren't that many female clients, especially if they're alone female clients coming to you. What advice would you give an advisor? How should they approach a woman maybe a little different from a man? Do you have any tips or pointers? Given the psyche of women, given maybe, you know, some concerns that they may have that you may want to address a little differently?
The most important thing, but this is important with both, but it's important for an advisor to be an exquisite listener. And I think males are a little more challenged with this, that they like to give lots of advice. I told someone today that I think nothing's happening unless I'm talking. And quite the opposite is true. So one thing that advisors can do is learn to talk less and let the client talk more. But quite frankly, that can go with male counterparts as well. Personally, my lead advisor in my firm is female. Most of my associates are female. I think females make fantastic advisors because they tend to have that connectivity, that human emotion side that comes a little easier to them than males. So it is a little confusing to me as to why the advisor profession is so heavily male dominated, especially here in India, but even in the US, maybe 2/3 of the advisors are male. And females make great advisors.
So various research studies have shown that women in America feel intimidated sometimes by numbers and finances and just lack the confidence. I see that in India. I definitely see that because we've been addressing women, and I do see that. Is that true in America? And again, 1 or 2 tips on how to draw them out and how to make them feel comfortable?
I think it is true that men, generally speaking, are more drawn to numbers. I mean, in our scientific fields, in our engineering fields, there tends to be less women. So I do believe men tend to be a little more left brain. Women tend to be a little bit more right brain. However, the number one mistake, the number one thing that will hurt an investor is their behavior, not all the numbers. And so by that I mean, It's our behavior that's going to determine our investment success. What's the worst behavior investment-wise we can do? Get out of a market when things are bad. In fact, there's studies that have shown women tend to have higher returns than men. Why? The studies say women make less decisions, meaning women don't try to trade the market as much. Women don't try to time the market as much. Women are a little more connected with their emotions, so when they become fearful, they can be more aware, I'm fearful right now, but not translate that into I'm going to go sell out the whole portfolio, which a man can tend to more do and make a very poor decision. So even though women don't follow the numbers and the alphas and the betas and the covariances and enjoy the numbers part more, they have the capacity to make better overall decisions. So what I would suggest is for them to learn the basics of investing. 80% of investing is very, very simple. In just a general asset allocation, the information is out there. You don't have to become an investment advisor. You don't have to become a specialist. Careers are made on the top 20%. 80% is good enough. If they can just learn the basics, they can be very, very successful.
So what I hear is that you're saying that women are born as good investors, clearly not because they understand numbers anymore, but because of their behavior attitudes, and because they're more connected to their emotions, they just seem to become better investors. And I think also what you're saying is that therefore Indian IFAs need to go out there and go and draw women in and make more women clients as investors. I mean, that is one thing we're trying to do in Winvestor, as I told you, is we're trying to encourage women to start making their own investment decisions, or at least encourage the husbands to start coming with their wives, or ask the father to come with their daughter, so that there are more women that are going to be investors. And I think from what you're saying is that they'll make great clients because they're not into timing the market. So I guess my advice at the end would be, or my takeaway would be, go and get more women to be your investors.
I would totally agree.
Rick, before we end, I'd like a success story on a woman investor, please.
I'll tell you the story of Brenda.
Okay.
She was had a very successful business. She made a very nice income. In the U.S., she was making $200,000 a year. But she had nothing in the way of investments. And as I talked to her, she had nice clothes and she had a nice house, but no money saved. And $200,000 a year at that time, she was single. A person can save a lot of money in the U.S. on that. And we did some exercises with her, which we call the money script exercise. And we did the money egg exercise where she told us her history with money. And what we found out was when she was a young girl, she was the saver of the family. And she saved money, and she had quite a bit of money saved. And one day her parents came in and said, we need some money, we're taking your piggy bank. And they took her bank, all of her money to use for the family emergency. And then when she was a young lady, her brother got into some trouble, and she had saved $10,000. And the family came to her and said, we need your $10,000 for your brother. You need to fund getting him out of jail and all of his defense costs. So what she learned was, if you save money, someone is going to take it from you. So she made sure she didn't have any money. She wasn't an overspender, she wasn't in debt, but when she got money in, it wasn't going to stay around because somebody was going to take that. When she became aware of that money script and aware of that behavior, she began to save. Today, she is still my client. She has saved several $100,000. She has paid off a house. She has is now married and is in control of her money. all because she learned and was able to see what her behaviors were and why she had the capacity to not save. And telling Brenda, you need to save, would not have worked. But when she understood why she didn't save and how that wasn't serving her today as an adult, she was able to change those behaviors, and today is a very successful investor.
Great, that's a really motivational story. Thank you very much, Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.